There are moments where your mind goes there. It's not that you're trying to dwell on it. It just shows up. A conversation you wish you would have handled differently. Something you said or didn't say. A decision that felt small at the time but doesn't feel small anymore. And it's strange because when you replay it, you don't just think about what happened. You start thinking about what you would do, what you should have said, how you could have responded, like your mind is trying to go back. And if you sit there long enough, you can almost feel it, that pull. If I could just get that moment back. Not your whole life, just that moment, just that conversation, that one decision, that one response. Because it feels like that's where everything shifted. But if we could be honest with ourselves, what we would start to realize is it probably didn't start there, did it? That moment didn't come out of nowhere. It felt like a moment. But it was built somewhere else. And if we're being honest, we'd have to go back way further than that. Hey, this is Jonathan, counselor at Sound Mind, professor at Living Faith Bible Institute, and a pastor right here in Kansas City at Midtown Baptist Temple. And this is Sound Mind, where we take a deeper look at life through a biblical lens. We're continuing today in our series called The Things That Spread. And as we begin to wrap this series up, I want to take everything we've been talking about and look at it from an honest perspective, because up to this point we've been looking at how sin it spreads quietly, subtly, but that's not the only thing that spreads. So today we're going to talk about what else can spread in your life. All right, let's talk about it. There are moments in your life where something in front of you forces a response, a decision, an opportunity, a step forward, something that doesn't let you stay where you are. And in those moments, it can feel like everything comes down to what's right in front of you, the pressure, the risk, the unknown. But that's not actually where the moment is being decided. Because what looks like a moment of pressure is usually a moment of revelation. It's not creating something new. It's really revealing what's already been growing. It's kind of like when you have a zit, you see the red mark, you know that there's something been going on underneath for a couple days. Yeah, gross. Okay. But we see this also in this point in the story of Israel, where everything could have gone one direction, and instead it went another. They're standing right on the edge of the land God promised them. They've heard what He said about it. They've seen it with their own eyes. They've walked through it. They're holding the fruit of it in their hands, and in that moment, they collapse. Not outwardly, not at first. They're still there, still standing, still in position. From the outside, nothing even looks broken, but internally, trust gives way. And this is where it gets really honest. Because the issue in that moment is not what's in front of them. It's what's already been gaining authority in them the whole time. We tend to think the biggest moments in our life are shaped by what's happening around us, the situation or the people, the pressure, but those moments don't create something new. They reveal what's already been growing. And what happens here It's not sudden. It's not even random. It's not out of character. It's the natural outcome of what's been quietly spreading underneath the surface. Which means if you misread the moment, you will misread your life. You'll think the problem is out there, that situation, those people, the pressure, when in reality, those moments are exposing what's already been given authority inside of you. And this is where everything begins to shift, because the answer is not just trying harder. It's not cleaning things up on the surface. It's learning to follow God in faith in the exact places where unbelief has been quietly growing. So they send in 12 men, spies, Numbers 13, right? One from each tribe, leaders, men who are trusted, men who represent the people. And they go in to see the land. They walk it, they study it, they experience it. And when they come back, they all agree on something. It says in Numbers 13:27, "We came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it." Okay, so they're not confused. The land is good. The promise is real. God was not holding out on them, and he wasn't exaggerating. They're literally holding evidence in their hands. But then something shifts because they keep talking. And in the same moment, the same land, the same evidence starts getting interpreted two very different ways. We see it in Numbers 13:28. It says, "Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great." And even as you listen, you can feel it. The tone is shifting, not the facts, the interpretation. And this is where it happens, because now they're not just reporting what they saw, they're revealing what they believe. And we continue in verse 31, it says, "We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." And that line right there, that's not observation, that's a determined conclusion. And once that conclusion is spoken, it carries weight. And we see in verse 32, it says, "And they brought up an evil report of the land." And notice that it doesn't say that the land was evil. It says the report was. We have the same land and now a different report, because what's happening here is not just information, it's interpretation, it's belief. It's how they are choosing to make sense of what they saw. And this is so important. Fear doesn't need new facts. It just needs a voice. And the moment fear finds language, it starts shaping how things are seen. It wasn't the land that changed, it was their lens. They all saw the same thing. They all walked the same ground. They all carried the same fruit. So what we see is that they didn't have different experiences. They had different conclusions. And now those conclusions are sitting in the same moment. We see in verse 30, "And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it." The same moment, the same reality, two completely different responses. Fear said, "Look at them." Faith said, "Look at God." Where fear saw obstacles, faith saw opportunity. And that right there is the tension that we all live in. So this tension doesn't just exist in what was said. It exists in what was inside of them. Because in the same moment, with the same land and the same evidence and the same voices, there was something different happening for Caleb. And God tells us exactly what it was in Numbers chapter 14, verse 24. But my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him, hath followed me fully. Another spirit, not new information, not a different version of reality, something different inside of him. And this is what we have to see, because Caleb didn't need the situation to change, to respond differently. He wasn't waiting for clarity. He was already anchored. He had already settled something before the pressure, before the decision, before that moment ever came. See, Caleb, he didn't rise to the moment. He simply responded from what was already there. And that's the difference, isn't it? Because we're not just looking at two reports. We're looking at two spirits, two internal directions, two ways of seeing the exact same reality. And both of them are present in the same moment, which means this was never just about what they saw. It was about what had been forming in them before they ever got there. Because in the same moment, you can have fear rising or faith, and whichever one is already taking root is what will end up leading you when it's time to move forward. So here's the question we need to be asking ourselves. If Caleb had a different spirit, why didn't that spread? Why didn't his voice carry the room? Why didn't faith take hold the way that fear did? Because both were present, both were clear, both were speaking, but only one of them became the direction of the people. And I think it's important to name that that's not random. And I think this is because fear doesn't ask very much of you. Fear agrees with what you already feel. Fear fits the moment. Fear feels like common sense. Fear tends to look at what's visible and builds a conclusion from it. And something in us just goes with that. That's just how we're wired. We move towards what feels immediate, what feels familiar and explainable, even if it's not true. And fear, it feels certain. It gives you something to hold on to right now, even if it's wrong. But faith, on the other hand, asks something different. Faith doesn't ignore reality, but it does refuse to let reality be the final authority. And that's way harder, because faith requires trust before there's resolution. It requires movement before there's certainty. It requires obedience before things make sense. We see the definition of faith in Hebrews 11:1. It says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Now, that's not natural. That has to be formed in you. That has to be built over time. And this is where it connects, because moments like this don't start in the moment. They're built long before it. Every small moment matters. That's why I love Romans 5. It talks about how we glory in tribulation. Why? Well, because it produces something in us. Patience, and patience produces experience, and experience produces hope. Now, this is a cyclical pattern that we see in Scripture, because we all know good and well that naturally we don't glory in tribulation. The only reason you would is because you've been there before. You've gone through a hardship, and it forced you to be patient. And out of that came an experience. And with that, as God moves in his grace, it produces hope. So then the next time around, you glory a little bit more. So all of these little moments matter. Every thought you return to, every conclusion you rehearse, every place you let your mind settle. You're building something. Is it fear or is it faith? Proverbs 4:23 says it this way: "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." Because what you let sit in your heart doesn't stay small. It starts shaping how you see everything. And if we're honest, our flesh, it leans a direction, doesn't it? Towards what's easier or what's comfortable, towards what feels familiar, even if familiar is bondage. And this is why fear spreads so easily. It aligns with what your flesh already prefers, but faith, it has to be chosen again and again. Romans 8 verse 5 says, "For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit." There's a direction you're thinking, a pattern to what you return to, and over time that becomes your default. So when the moment comes, you don't rise above it. You respond from it. What you've been feeding quietly will lead you publicly. And this is why this matters so much, because what spreads in your life is not always what's true. It's what's fed. James 1:14 and 15, "But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin." See, it starts small, internal, it's subtle, but it doesn't stay that way. And in that moment, the people didn't just hear fear, they agreed with it, they repeated it, they strengthened it, and eventually they followed it. And that's the warning, because in your life, both voices are present. Fear is speaking. Faith, it's speaking, but they don't spread equally. They spread based on what you give weight to, what you return to, what you let take root. And whichever one you allow to grow will shape the direction you take next. So, as we're seeing, this isn't just about Israel. This isn't just about 12 spies. This isn't just about Caleb having a different spirit. This is about you. Because whether you realize it or not, you are always letting something grow. Not someday, not when life slows down, right now. Something is being formed in you, a pattern, a perspective, a reflex. The way that you interpret pressure, the way you respond to uncertainty, the way you talk to yourself when things don't go the way you expected. It's not neutral. Proverbs says, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." Not some of life, all of life, which means what's forming internally is going to show up externally. And this is what we've seen across this entire series. A thought you don't challenge, a fear you keep rehearsing, a conclusion you let sit. And over time, it stops feeling like something you're dealing with, and it starts feeling like something that is you. It's true, it's your identity. That's how the 10 spies got there. They didn't wake up that morning deciding, let's rebel against God. They just kept agreeing with what felt the most obvious, more immediate, more believable, and their flesh leaned into it. because that's what our flesh does. It gravitates towards what's easier, what feels safer, what feels familiar, even if it's wrong. Galatians says the flesh lusteth against the spirit, meaning there's always tension, always some kind of pull that's happening inside of us. One direction requires trust, the other requires nothing. One says, God is able. The other says, let me just go with what I can see. And if you don't interrupt that, if you don't speak into that, if you don't challenge it, it's going to grow. Because growth here, it doesn't require intention. It just requires permission. And some of you, you've been letting something grow for a long time, a quiet fear, a subtle resentment, a low-grade unbelief that you've learned how to live with. It's not loud or dramatic, but it is shaping you. It's shaping how you see God, how you see yourself, how you see what's in front of you. And eventually it's going to speak, because whatever grows in you long enough will find its way out of you. Jesus said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So the question isn't, is something forming? The question is, what are you letting form? Because both are available. Fear is always ready, but so is faith. One magnifies the obstacle, the other magnifies God. One will keep you circling, the other will move you forward. And the difference between them is not what you've seen, but it's what you've decided to believe about what you've seen. All right, so when I think about all of this, my mind immediately goes to time travel. Like when you have those thoughts, if I could go back, I would do it different. And honestly, don't you think that that's what the children of Israel thought when they were wandering in the wilderness? If they could go back, they wouldn't stand there and say, we're not able. So the question is, where would they have to go back to? Because I don't think it would be that moment. I think what we're learning is that they would have to go back way before that. Like if they had a DeLorean with a flux capacitor and they were able somehow to get that thing up to 88 miles per hour, where do you send them? Back to the edge of the land or back to the moments where fear started forming? And this is what I've always loved about Back to the Future, apart from all the obvious things, like...
Are you telling me you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean? Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan? The actor? This is heavy. There's that word in it. Heavy.
So why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
It's make like a tree and leave.
Guess you guys aren't ready for that yet.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Yes, I could quote this entire movie. I absolutely love it. But here's the thing I love most. It's the idea that small things change everything. Like the tiniest little thing, Marty shows up a little early, says the wrong thing to the wrong person, bumps into the wrong person at the wrong time. And suddenly, his entire future starts shifting. Pictures start fading. People start disappearing. His family looks different. His life looks completely different. And the whole tension of the movie is this. Did something just change? Or was that already in motion? And this is true of our lives as well. It's never just one big decision. It's the small moments that end up rewriting everything. We all have those moments, don't we? Moments we look back on with tears of joy or grief. And when you trace them back, it wasn't just what you chose. It was what was underneath it. What was driving you? What spirit was leading you? Was it fear in that moment? Or was it faith? Because there are those moments where there's something in front of you and it's pressing on you, a decision, a response, a step. And in that moment, it feels like you're just choosing what to do. But what we don't always realize is we're not just choosing in that moment. We're revealing what's been forming. And so often we don't just stop and go, all right, is this fear or faith? That's usually not how it works. One of them already feels more natural. One of them already sounds more believable. One of them already feels like you. So that's why we like time travel, right? Because we think, if I could just go back, I'd fix that moment. But here is the good news. We don't need time travel because Jesus, who lives outside of space and time, who was and is to come, came and lived a perfect, sinless life. And he knew us from the beginning. And he knew us when he hung on the cross. And he knew us when he died and he rose from the dead. And he knew us before we made the right decisions. And so God sent his Son, his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. So we don't have to go back. We, by God's grace, can redeem the time. Not by reliving moments, but by interpreting what's forming right now in light of spiritual reality. And so then when hardship comes, because it will, you won't be deciding from scratch. You'll be responding from what you've been building. So then the question isn't, if I could go back, what would I change? The question becomes, what am I letting grow right now? So we've all had moments where something showed up in our life and we didn't even recognize how it got there. Not all at once, but slowly and quietly, almost unnoticeable, until one day it just feels like, this is who I am. And that's where all of this started, back in Leviticus, with something small, a spot arising, something you could easily look at and say, that's no big deal. And God said, no, stop there, look at it, bring it into the light, because what starts small doesn't stay small. But what's just as important is this. In that same chapter about leprosy, there were moments where it didn't keep spreading, where it was examined, it was tended to, and declared clean. And that's not just about the skin. We too can bring our leprosy to a great high priest. And he doesn't just identify what's wrong, he makes us clean. Which means, yes, fear can spread. It can become the narrative. It can start shaping how you see everything. But it's not the only thing that spreads. Faith can spread too. You can catch something early. You can interpret what's been forming. You can stop feeding what doesn't belong and start walking in what God has already given you. Because Scripture says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind. And that means you're not stuck with what's been growing in you. You can bring it into the light. You can let Him deal with it. You can redeem the time and move forward in victory. If this episode surfaced something in your own heart, it might be worth talking about it with someone you trust. Talk to a friend, talk to a pastor, talk to someone who's earned the right to speak into your life. And if you're looking for biblical counseling, you can reach out at soundmind.live. We'd be glad to help you connect with someone near you. And hey, if this episode was helpful for you, please consider to rate and review the show. Now, phone a friend. If you don't know how to rate and review a show, phone a friend. Someone can help you. Rate and review Sound Mind wherever you listen. It really does help people find their way here. You can also follow along on Instagram and Facebook. I've also started a TikTok. Search soundmind.live on any of these platforms. This is where we share short reflections right in the middle of your week. And for more thoughtful biblical conversations, check out the Postscript. You can search the Postscript wherever you listen. And if you want to know the Bible for yourself, please do yourself a favor and check out the Living Faith Bible Institute at lfbi.org. Thanks for listening. Until next time, take care.